Part 73. He found out that my little guard really had amnesia. Why are you so happy all of a sudden? Baiming Qianyu turned his head and saw a smile on Junhua's face. And looked at Junhua, who had been staring at the direction where Baiming Yufeng disappeared, and was unhappy. Junhua hid the happiness on his face and said coldly, I suddenly thought of something funny, so I think it's a little funny. Oh, is it? Then speak to this prince. Baiming Qianyu is not so perfunctory. What he saw just now. Junhua's sincere smile when he looked at the back of Baiming Yufeng made him go crazy with jealousy. Junhua looked at Baiming Qianyu, who was suddenly wrong, and replied indifferently. I think it's funny. Maybe it's not funny for the prince. Isn't it this prince who judges whether it's funny? All you have to do is say it. Baiming Qianyu is unrelenting. And he is bound to listen to his quibbles. Belch. Junhua is a little difficult. For a while, where does he go to find a funny past? Looking back on his life, he was well behaved. Had no naughty experience, and honestly pretended to be a well-behaved child to please his father. Raising his eyes, he saw that Baiming Qianyu had a posture that he had been staring at him without saying anything, and he was defeated. When I was a child, I was caught eating greedily. And then I was beaten on the board. This is really not a trumped-up event that he casually came to. It really happened when he was a child, when he was punished for doing something wrong. He was so hungry that he almost fainted after not eating for a day. It was his brother who ignored the punishment and quietly stole some food for him. But he was discovered by someone who was interested and told his father that in the end he and his brother were beaten 10 boards. Looking back now, his butt hurts faintly, but his heart is warm. His brother's kindness to him, he remembers it for the rest of his life. Your family is too stingy. And they will be beaten for eating. Baiming Qianyu secretly scolded the Shen family for being stingy. Didn't he just eat something? Will they eat the poor? Seeing that he was upset about himself, Junhua showed a shallow smile on his face. That's because I did something wrong first, and I was punished for not being allowed to eat. Because my brother felt sorry for me and quietly stole food and gave it to me, but my father knew about it, so he was beaten. Your brother is not bad to you. Although Junhua was beaten in the end, his original intention was good. He's the best guy in the world for me. When it comes to Junyi, Junhua's heart is warm, and a warm smile is also shown on his face. Junyi is not only his brother to him, but also his father. If Junyi hadn't protected him all the time when he was young, maybe he would have died at the hands of those who wanted to assassinate him. No, there's another person who's the best for you. Baiming Qianyu opened a pair of big eyes, as if to say, I'm the best for you. Baiming Kun on the side couldn't stand it anymore. And left in a hurry after saying goodbye. He was going to find a beauty to wash his eyes. A few people in the Lengyi can't stand it anymore. Is this still the regent who killed decisively? Junhua pretended not to understand Baiming Qianyu's hints. He listened to the festive gongs and drums from the front yard, and said, It seems that the newcomer is going to visit the church. Let's go and have a look. What's so nice about the church? If you like it, let's change it to a church tomorrow. Baiming Qianyu suddenly regretted it. He should have worshipped first when Ziqing princess was in the first place. Prince, don't make trouble. Worship is a privilege only for marrying a wife. If he visits Baiming Qianyu, won't he become the princess of Baiming Qianyu? Besides, if he really worships with Baiming Qianyu, he won't be angry with Baiming Qianyu when he runs away one day. Therefore, this kind of thing must not happen, otherwise his sin will be great. I didn't make a fuss. Baiming Qianyu had a straight face, thinking that he and Junhua worshipped. Junhua was his person and his ghost in death, so he didn't want to escape from his side in his life. Biming Qianyu, who wanted to tie Junhua to his side for the rest of his life, turned around and told Leng Yi to pick a good day. When Junhua saw that Biming Qianyu was really coming, he almost didn't take a breath. Prince, no. I have a humble status. How can I become your princess? Whoever dares to say that you are lowly, this prince will kill him. Biming Qianyu is not joking. Junhua felt that he had to speed up his escape. Otherwise, the more he dragged on, the more terrifying it became. The wedding party for the newlyweds was very lively, but Junhua, who was worried about himself and guard force, couldn't eat anything. Especially seeing that Weian, who had recovered a lot, was sitting obediently beside Biming Yufeng. He really wanted to pull Weian to escape from this place. But seeing that guard showed a puzzled gaze every time he looked at him, he was faintly uneasy. Could it be that guard really had amnesia? What are you staring at Fubai all the time? Biming Qianyu, who always pays attention to Junhua, finally couldn't stand it anymore, and asked Junhua with his ear. I've seen him face to face, where should I have met before? Junhua was quite calm. His face was not red, and his heart was lying without a beat. Ever since he got to know Biming Qianyu, his lying skills have become higher and higher. During the banquet, Biming Yufeng happened to hear this, and immediately came to his senses and asked, Do you know Fubai? He has been helping Fubai find his family, but because Fubai has amnesia, he can't remember where his family lives, so he still finds nothing for more than a month. Now that I know that Junhua knows Fubai, I naturally will not let go of this news. As soon as Fubai heard that Junhua knew himself, his originally godless eyes immediately became bright. He had thought that Junhua was very familiar before, but seeing Junhua's cold expression, he was afraid that it was his wishful thinking, so he didn't dare to ask. When Junhua saw Weian's expression, he knew that Weian really had amnesia. And seeing that Biming Yufeng was so concerned about Weian's affairs, he chose to fulfill Weian. His gaze fell on Weian, who looked hopeful, and shook his head. I don't know either. But I've seen it somewhere before, so it's a little familiar. When he heard that he didn't know him, he hung his head in disappointment. Seeing his lost face, Biming Yufeng rubbed his head gently and comforted. It's okay, sooner or later, I will find your family one day. Seeing that the tenderness on the face of Biming Yufeng did not seem to be fake, Junhua was very relieved. He raised his wineglass, toasted Biming Yufeng, and then drank it in one gulp. The people at the table looked at Junhua, who suddenly toasted. And they all had a puzzled expression on the second monk. What are you toasting all of a sudden? Biming Qianyu asked Junhua in a low voice. He thought that tonight's Junhua was too strange. Junhua originally wanted to say, it's rare to see such a loving couple, and I envy it in my heart, but out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of old General Bai walking towards their table with his son, and he was afraid of being recognized, and he whispered to Biming Qianyu, suddenly my stomach is upset. Go to the thatched house. Dropping these words, he stood up and hurriedly fled in the opposite direction of old General Bai. Biming Qianyu was just about to get up to chase after him. But old General Bai Lao had already come over with his son, which made Biming Qianyu, who wanted to chase Junhua, have to give up and greet General Bai. And the floating white who drank all night of wine was really urgent, and after saying a word to Biming Yufeng, he left the table. Biming Qianyu saw Fubai leave the table. A little uneasiness flashed in his eyes. He vaguely guessed that the relationship between Junhua and Fubai was not ordinary, but he couldn't pull away. After he perfunctory General Bai, he ran non-stop to find Junhua, who refused to come back for a long time. When Biming Qianyu found Junhua, he saw Junhua and Fubai chatting happily, looking at the smile on Junhua's face. Jealousy almost made him not suppress the violent emotions in his heart. He exuded a cold air all over his body, and walked towards the two of them with angry steps. Junhua suddenly felt the temperature around him drop sharply, and when he was wondering in his heart, he caught a glimpse of Baiming Qianyu, who was bubbling with cold air coming straight towards him, and sighed in his heart, evil. When Fubai saw Baiming Qianyu, he hurriedly saluted, but at this time, Baiming Qianyu, who was dominated by anger, directly ignored his existence. Baiming Qianyu stared at Junhua with a gloomy expression, as if he wanted to stare into Junhua's flesh, and asked word by word. "This is what you said about familiarity. What was the appearance of the conversation just now? Take him for a fool? Deceive him again and again? I just happened to meet. So we chatted a few words." Junhua explained. "Do you think this prince will believe?" Baiming Qianyu suddenly found that he was very ridiculous. He was a dignified prince, and he was jealous for a male concubine. However, the more Junhua ignored him, the more angry he became, and he wanted to imprison him in the palace so that no one could see him. "If you don't believe me, I can't help it." Junhua shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands, so angry that Baiming Qianyu turned around and left. Did my existence make the prince misunderstand something? Fubai saw that Baiming Qianyu was so angry that he only left a trace of his back, and his face was worried. "Don't think about it. He's like that. Junhua has his arrogance, naturally he will not please Baiming Qianyu." He looked at the still worried Fubai, and said with a smile, "Fubai, if you recover your memory one day, I hope you will remember what I said today." "What?" Fubai looked confused. "Just be Fubai, don't look back. Junhua set him free, and may he have his own happiness for the rest of his life." "Huh?" Fubai looked dazed. Junhua didn't say much. Looking at Baiming Qianyu, who was getting farther and farther, he finally chose to keep up with the pace of Baiming Qianyu.